Comic books are an important contributing factor in many cases of juvenile.
Up in the sky! Faster than a speeding bullet.
Holy, here we go again.
Hello and welcome to These Guys Have Issues, the podcast where we discuss current topics and issues within the comic book community. I'm your host, Carter Hutchison.
And I'm your host, Huey V.
And Huey, I think we have a very timely topic today for us to dive into. It's something that's been on my mind a lot in the past couple weeks.
It's always on my mind.
Right. As soon as I floated this your way, you were like, oh man, I could talk about that for days.
Days.
Today, the issue that we're covering is Toxic Fandom. It seems to be really, it's the Game of Thrones conversation that has put that to the forefront to me, that people who aren't even usually like sucked up into the geek culture realm are just destroying this, last few episodes or whatnot of this series that they loved for so long, and then people like love to turn on something. You know what I mean?
Well, to me, I think the things that I've heard, because I'm a little bit behind,
right?
The things that I've heard is not really the wanting to turn on it, but it was just a feel of betrayal because of the writing of the show. Is that what people really have an issue with? And it's more or less the exposition rather than the I hate this now.
Yes, I mean this last season, and we're gonna do a whole episode on the Game of Thrones finale, so I don't want to get like into the nitty gritty of it really. Right. But this season was very like, okay, we're starting here, and we have to get here to the end, and we have to get there in 6 episodes, so we have to hit these beats along the way, right? And there's not too much time for stuff in between. They would have done a lot better, I think, if they had those, what people had been calling filler episodes the past few seasons, but are actually character developing episodes.
That's what I call filler episodes. And that's the thing that's also a part of this toxic fandom, especially in like anime, which I know we're going to get to that eventually. But it's just the whole idea, filler, way too much filler. And I'm like, it's called character development.
Right.
It drives the story along.
Yeah, if it's not that, then it's just battle.
Yeah.
And that's like reading the last 40 minutes of Return of the King, just on repeat.
Yeah.
Then they battled to this place and battled, and then they warred here.
And that's the thing that people hated the most about, I've heard from people about in-game, is the all of the exposition between the first scene and to the last battle. The last hour was mind-blowingly awesome.
Yes.
But the first, how like 3-hour movie it was?
Yeah, it's
so like the first 2 hours of the movie, you got a lot of exposition.
Yeah.
And one of my coworkers, she said one of her friends when she watched it, because I hadn't even watched it at that point, she said that the movie was basically a big thank you to those who have really sat and watched, stuck along with it. And you watch it and you're just like, okay, I totally understand that.
Yeah, it's a culmination of, it's a putting a bow on it, right? Exactly. We're ending an era.
It made me think of Age of Ultron, where, you go back in time and you can change things. And that's what we were talking about before we rolled, and it was just like, Marvel just loves to do the timelines versus the multiverses.
Right.
I think with Spider-Man, you get
they
a lot
like
more
to have
multiverse.
a set timeline, even though it's constantly sliding, because you have to like update. Like let's say whatever war the Punisher was in, right?
Yes.
You can't be Vietnam for forever. Else
Exactly.
he's like 60, 70 years old running around now.
Wolverine is like the biggest.
Wolverine, you can
keep him in a nice timeline because he's
immortal, right?
But,
essentially,
and that's the biggest thing that people had an issue with, was the exposition, and you can call that filler, but it drove the story along. And I felt like from what I hear, like I said, I'm not really too caught up on Game of Thrones.
Right. I know it's not like number one on your to-do list or something. You're not like a huge fan of it.
I'm
right?
I'm a big fan. It's just that other things that I'm a bigger fan of, I just started, watching. It just got to a point where the story was just kind of really just irritating me. And so I just stopped watching. And that was not because I didn't like the show.
Right.
It was because other things kind of caught my mind.
Yeah.
And I'm going to eventually watch it. My wife is so irritated with the fact of me.
I'm sure she just wants to talk about it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so before we jump into any more here, just as always, a quick message from our Patreon. All of Grassroots Comics is funded through our Patreon, patreon.com/grassrootscomics. For as little as $1 a month, you can become part of the Grassroots Comics community, which includes many perks, such as having your name mentioned in this segment of every episode of the podcast, the ability to suggest topics of discussion for shows like These Guys Have Issues, access to the private Grassroots Comics subreddit where members can continue discussions started on the podcast or start their own, behind-the-scenes access to the GRC studio, and early access to digitally released comics and Classic Cartoon Rewind. So it is the goal of all of us here at Grassroots Comics Productions that one day the Patreon is strong enough where we are able to produce the stories, artwork, and stop-motion animation shorts pitched and selected by the Grassroots Comics community. But the only way that becomes possible is with a strong Patreon. So if you feel that the entertainment value you receive from this podcast is at least worth 25 cents, then please become a Patreon contributor today, and with our powers combined, we can have all of our stories heard. All right, now let's get on with the rest of the show. Okay, framing the beginning of the conversation around Game of Thrones, right? This especially is a series that, like, for 7 seasons, trains its audience to be disappointed.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you really like Ned Stark, his head's chopped off.
Too
right?
bad, you
right.
know.
You think Rob's going to be the rightful king of the 7 kingdoms? He's dead and killed at the Red Wedding and paraded around with a wolf's head.
You know what? I never felt like he should have been. I felt like he was seriously, like, I think they put him in that position.
Right. To avenge Ned. And
he got way too over the top because, like, the guy that he killed, he was afraid, right?
Yes, or they were. No, I can't remember exactly. It was an ally of one of them. No, he burns his wife. He was going to marry his wife or one of his daughters, and then he falls in love with that really hot girl.
Well, you remember when he told those guys not to kill those kids?
Yes,
and they killed them anyway. And then he was just like, that was a complete just disobeying. You're disobeying your king. And he's like, You're no king to me, boy.
Oh. And
then he chopped his head off, which was like one of the sloppiest head chops in the whole entire show. Because he was just like, that sword was so blunt.
Wait, are you talking about when Theon, maybe?
No. He killed the guy that killed those kids. And because he felt like that was a big betrayal and treason, he killed them.
Right. And they were like some of the oldest allies to House Stark.
And after that, he lost a lot of allies.
Right, bannermen. Right. But yeah, the point being that for 7 seasons, that's how it has been.
Right.
And then, I know that everybody picks their favorites along their way. And especially with a show like Game of Thrones, like, the fun part is the setup. Because as odd as this statement is going to sound, endings are anticlimactic. Like, the setup, the going up, on the roller coaster is the fun part. And then when you're just coming into the end and everything has to, like, wrap up in a, like, certain way.
Yeah, I have the point that I agree with the point that you should be prepared to just be disappointed at the end of the show.
You can't bring your own expectations to it. I know everyone's going to, but, like, and then don't be pissed that it doesn't end how you thought or wanted it to end. Mostly how you wanted it to end.
Yeah, but I don't think that was, like, everybody's problem, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think, like I said, it was just the lack of exposition. I feel like there was a lack of character development.
Right,
And, like, when, big spoiler, like, when Daenerys, basically burns down King's Landing.
Right.
And it's like, they didn't give a lot of exposition between the time that she's on the dragon and she snaps. I feel
okay,
like
well that's fair, but the lead up to that has been all 7 seasons, where like
yeah, of course,
she does something terrible, and you kind of write it off for like, oh, these slave masters were horrible people. I can't even remember like what town it was where she was it. I think it was the town with where she like crucifies all the people
No, Karth was before that.
Okay.
Was Karth before that? That was
whichever town it was where there's just a ton of people crucified on this road and like people riding into it. Like that is a horrific sight.
It is horrific, but you gotta think about the universe that George R. R. Martin set up, like the whole world that he set up. That
agreed. And a fan coming to that should not be surprised as well either that at that point that same character decide to basically burn King's Landing to the ground.
She set that dude up. Because the guy didn't believe that he had no reason to believe that she understood anything that he was saying.
Oh right, that dude, yeah.
Yeah, so the guy that she burned,
that is a very satisfying moment.
But you got to understand that from the very moment that she like was introduced into the show, it's been nothing but people putting her in a position to go off.
Yes.
From the very first moment, like her brother, and
we're gonna go home, but we're gonna go home with an army.
Yeah.
Right.
And he comes in drunk. This is after her and Drogo fall in love and everything. And there's also that guy that they caught that was trying to kill her, and they basically beat the hell out of him and tied him to a horse. And Khal Drogo made that big epic speech about if you ever go after my wife, if anybody goes after my wife, they are going to
coming for you.
Yeah, I'm coming for you.
Yeah.
And then it was like her brother who came through drunk, and he was like, he had a knife in his hand. He was like, that baby's going to come with me whether you're alive or not. And he said that in front of a bunch of Dothraki who was sworn to protect this woman. And then he got the golden crown.
Oof, man. Yeah, that is another satisfying moment. That is...
But every moment has been very satisfying, and it was because people were basically coming after her. Like whenever one of her handmaidens betrayed her,
right?
I think it was in Karth when she had that big black guy and her handmaiden locked in the vault and everything.
Right. Yeah, it's all brutal. Like it's all brutal along the way. It's just that you think she's justified, so you like write it off in your head as being like kind of okay.
But is he really thinking that she's justified, or is she actually justified in those situations?
Does violence always take violence to end it, or is that just a cycle of violence?
Has it been a cycle of violence whenever she comes to a place? Though?
I mean, I'm not talking about just in Game of Thrones.
But in real life,
like
yeah. But
you see what I'm saying? That like
in real life, violence
that's the Malcolm X answer.
Yeah,
too.
Violence always begets violence.
Right.
Of course.
Right. And so then meeting that back again with violence is the Malcolm X answer, right? Whereas, a pathway of peace would be more Martin Luther King.
Yeah, it's just like, you know. But, it's such a really hard thing to, like, look at.
To do.
It's hard to do.
Yes, it's against human instinct.
Because, there's always going to be a war somewhere.
Yeah.
And then somebody's always going to be what you consider the good side of history.
Yes.
And for the longest time, throughout the whole entire show, Daenerys has always been on the good side of history.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the comparison, you see her do a lot of good things with the violence that she does do.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the violence that she commits is because people are really challenging her.
Mm-hmm.
She hasn't always been like, I'm Khaleesi, I'm gonna kill everybody. It's because somebody she's always had like a bunch of people behind her.
Yes.
That are always counting.
That are enabling her.
Yeah. But she is the queen.
Yes. But in like the world of Twitter and these petitions for when people don't like something, that they set up a petition for it to be remade, as if that's ever going to happen.
Yeah, I think that's a little ridiculous, because if that's the case,
that's a part of toxic fandom. I feel like.
Yeah, I think there's delusional.
Yes. Well, yeah. When has this ever worked? When has that ever done anything?
That's what I say. I was like, you would have to go back and change a lot of things. I think if
Sure.
you have
Right.
a petition to redo
Right.
all of season 4 of Arrow.
We're gonna remake Halle Berry's Catwoman. You know,
Oh God,
I didn't like Batman and Robin. Let's give Arnold Schwarzenegger another crack at being Mr. Freeze.
yeah.
Like, it's just, I don't understand. It's like whoever, it's so naive.
Can we redo
Whoever-
Green Lantern? Can we redo that?
Sure, I bet you they'd be
I would
okay with
actually
that one.
like to redo
Right,
Green
and we'll
Lantern.
get there. We will. There will be another, and that's another thing too. I saw someone say on Twitter, like, people that keep doing these petitions is like you haven't been paying attention to Hollywood in the past like 30 years.
Yeah.
Just wait like 10 years and they're gonna remake it anyways.
Nowadays, you don't even have to wait
10
10
years
years?
maybe, especially if you're Spider-Man.
Literally
it just
wait a
happens
few
in the
years,
next, yeah.
and then they're gonna remake, or they're gonna come up with like
That's
a
another
different.
Game of Thrones thing. There's gonna be another Game of Thrones series in 2021. So like, y'all can all be prepared to hate
The
it
last
at
two
that
books
point
aren't
too,
even
or bitch
finished yet,
about
aren't
it.
they?
Yeah, I bet you that new spin-off series comes out before the next book.
Mm-hmm.
Putting that down right now in the sports book.
And I wouldn't have a problem with a spin-off series because there are other like
Oh, it's a huge world and
there's
like
other kingdoms.
Great, yeah. I'm not complaining about that at all. Those sound awesome. I do think that like you can maybe give the world some time to breathe after this instead of like immediately rushing into the next, because they're filming it like this summer.
I think the only time this has actually worked is recently with the Sonic movie.
Yeah, I guess that's true. But
I think,
that,
but that
is
is before
so,
it's actually released.
Yes, and it's so small too that like it's fixable, and it's a digital character. So like,
Yeah.
I'm sure if you like fix it in one part, you can set it to like fix itself in the rest.
I feel like that was just a marketing ploy. I don't really think that they had. I don't think that the Sonic that they gave you was the Sonic they were actually going to give. It was way too quick for them to have the actual like digital representation of the Sonic that we know and love. I feel like they
Jeez.
already had that just set up already. So it was like, oh, let's just piss people off.
Right.
And
And then we'll
just-
get a bunch of bad press, but there's really no such thing as bad press.
No such
as
thing as
Donald
bad-
Trump can tell you.
No such thing.
Right. But the petition thing,
Fefe.
the the petition thing can lead us into Star Wars here. So a lot of people disliked The Last Jedi, and I can tell you how many petitions I have seen to have The Last Jedi remade.
Right.
Which is never gonna fucking happen.
I didn't
Like,
even know that there were petitions for that.
Oh,
I didn't even
yeah.
know about that. Maybe I'm not in the Star Wars realm,
So-
but you know.
Ryan Johnson will touch on it some on Twitter in like a very sarcastic kind of way, like y'all just keep waiting for that, ha 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 type deal. But I know he is more of the, if you say something like personally against me, I'm gonna like block you pretty much immediately.
That's fun.
Yeah, which I think you have to do at that point. Another like aspect of toxic fandom within Star Wars, which might be the most toxic of fandom communities, in my opinion.
It really has shown to be one
It's
of the most
not-
toxic and the most
Yeah.
a lot
And
of
it's
race
surprisingly-
issues, a lot
yes,
of
exactly.
sexist issues.
Surprisingly, like white male driven. Maybe that's not surprising, but
I just don't know where that's coming. Why? Like I don't get it. Like
I know.
why are we at this point, 2019? I was like 2007, 2018.
Sure, but still.
why?
right.
Do we have to like have these issues now? There, like I have my personal ideas. Personally,
Mhm.
you know, certain things just kind of annoy me about certain movies.
Yeah.
But you're gonna go and watch it anyway. You're
Yes.
gonna put money into
And
it.
that's the dude. Like all these people bitching about Game of Thrones and stuff. I guarantee you, tuned in.
tuned in.
right at 8:00 for the last episode.
You watch it because you don't want to not be a part of that
Yep.
part of history.
Yep.
You
And the
don't
same
wanna-
people that are bitching about Last Jedi are gonna pay to see the Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah,
Um,
which looks pretty awesome.
It does look great. But, like Daisy Ridley had to get off Twitter completely. Like, she took her account away because of the
And that's
hate
the,
and
that's the
comments.
messed up part
Right,
about
man.
it, though.
Like, I just feel so bad for one thing for that actress who you are given something that should be so precious and joyful as something like Star Wars.
Star Wars was revolutionary.
Yes, and it's like...
Huge history.
See, the problem is that when, especially stuff like Star Wars that has been around for forever, and when it was not cool to like it, right?
Yeah.
That, like, you feel like it's part of you, and like it's part of who you are, it's part of your childhood, and then when people come in and do something that's against that, it feels personal, because Star Wars is personal to a lot of people. And I think that's where a lot of this this toxicity comes from, is this feeling of ownership, when we as fans need to realize that, like, we don't own these things. You know, like, the same guy that gave us Empire Strikes Back is the same guy that gave us Episode 2 Attack of the Clones.
Yes, right.
Right? Like, it's George. It was George Lucas's. I think if we as fans could get rid of that ownership mentality, a lot of this butthurtness over.
It's kind of hard to do so when you.
It is.
If there's so many people that have such a big attachment to these things.
Mm-hmm.
If you're like in a real dark place, and you start watching something, and it's that one thing that got you out of that place.
A good movie can be like a warm blanket to somebody.
And so when they like kind of change it,
mm-hmm.
it kind of like it takes the world that you knew and loved.
Mm-hmm.
It takes that away from you.
But
And
those
there's
things
a
that
lot
you
of-
knew and love are still always there.
They're always
and
there.
Like, unless you're George Lucas and you go back in and edit the
Or
things.
if you're J.K. Rowling and anything somebody puts on Twitter, she's
You're
always like,
oh,
you know
yeah.
what? That makes sense.
Right, let's read that into my work 30 years later.
That totally makes sense.
That's
Couldn't do
really
that.
annoying.
It's so annoying. Like, you have a whole entire world. You can't just put exposition that you read on freaking Twitter.
And when you put out artwork, like, it's in amber, essentially. Like, it is frozen in that moment. Like, you shouldn't really be able to go back and edit your work. It's not like I can go back into podcasts a couple weeks ago and like change some of my Game of Thrones predictions to like better match what actually happened.
Yeah, people
You see
have
what I'm
already
saying?
listened to it.
Right. And like I already put it out, like it is there in that time, in that moment, for a reason.
Well, they did that in Star Wars, Guido shooting first.
Yes, and that is a massive problem.
It's
I will say.
massive problem
Right.
because it will never. People will not stop arguing about that.
Well,
That
because
won't-
that actually fundamentally changes the character of who Han is in the first place.
Because in the original, he didn't shoot Guido.
Guido doesn't shoot, no, at all in the original. It's just they're having the conversation. Guido is getting, aggressive. He is pointing a gun at Han, but Han pulls a gun from under the table and shoots Guido without Guido shooting first.
In the original.
Yes.
And
So the idea of Guido shooting first is to be like, see, Han's not like a bad guy because he was shot at first, so like it's okay to like retaliate. But if you're watching a scene of these like two people at a table or whatnot, and they're like, and things are getting heated, and then one just like secretly pulls out a gun, shoots the other one on their table, like that shows you something about that character's character.
Right.
Right. So to change the shot order does actually fundamentally change who Han is, and especially to me when you're first seeing a character, those first introductions are so powerful.
And that's a strong example of what we're like talking about to a certain extent, where it's like going back and then just changing those things, and it became such a huge problem. It's really no different because it changes
Right.
the whole entire thing going forward. And that was just like a digital remastering of it.
Mm-hmm.
But like you did a digital remastering, but you completely changed the whole entire feel of
Yes.
the whole thing.
And that's why I think there was the difference in reception between the Solo movie and the Rogue One movie.
Mm-hmm.
Rogue One is a movie about these characters that you didn't grow up with, that you didn't have these little action figures of, that you didn't imagine yourself as, when you're playing with
those.
Yes, exactly. But then Solo comes out, and to me, if you're Disney, and I'm sure they probably learned this lesson now, but you can't do any movie that is of the big three, the big original three, Han, Luke, and Leia.
Mm-hmm.
Don't do a movie of those without Harrison Ford, Mark Hamill, or Carrie Fisher.
Right.
And to where you add on their worlds, because like those three characters especially are so like central to many like Gen Xers and stuff, their childhood of like pretending to be Luke Skywalker or something.
Yeah, that's like some of the first cosplay that some people have done.
Yeah, that when you mess with that, you're literally messing with someone's childhood. So, at the same time, though, the reaction of the fan base does not need to be to where we like berate this person enough to where they have to feel that they can't be on a form of social media.
And it was just like what's the characters? The black guy. What's his name? What's his character?
Finn.
Finn.
Mm-hmm.
Like he got hate, didn't he? Because it was just like first
right.
like
a black stormtrooper.
Yeah, first like there's always like, you know, you had Lando Calrissian being the main black character, but you have another one.
Yeah.
You had Mace
Samuel
Windu.
Jackson. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's just like we've had that before.
Yeah,
but it's just the fact that he's going to be more canon. You're going to see him in more movies.
He's more prominent than either one of those two.
But
yeah, he's basically Han Solo
this
for
is space.
The new ones. Heck, that's what I'm saying.
This is space.
You can't be cool with like a walking dog Wookiee character, you know, or a giant space slug of Jabba the Hutt and not accept that there's like black and brown people in a galaxy far, far away.
Yeah. It's mind blowing.
Yeah, I know. I can't understand how some people think that as well. But do you think it's social media that makes this? I definitely think it's social media that makes this worse.
I think social media is bringing a lot of it to light.
Do you think social media created it, or do you think it has been around?
It's always been around. I feel like it's always been around.
I think that's probably true.
We're not at the days where we can just throw our opinion out there at the tip of our fingertips. I think now it's like you can really talk about it.
Yeah,
and talk about it with somebody.
You can even address the people that you're talking like.
That's
like
the messed
Twitter,
up part
right?
about it. You can harass these people, and that's why you
can add somebody.
Can add them. Mm-hmm. You can really add them, tag them, whatever.
Right.
Go in their DM.
Yeah.
You're the worst. Why would you even?
Most people in the public sphere don't allow you to direct message them on Twitter. At least. But
here's the thing, though. It's like the people that are creating these new storylines, they're choosing the people.
Yes.
And those people audition.
Mm-hmm.
They wrote a story for these characters. They didn't have the idea of who was going to play them. Some, they probably had an idea of who was going to play. It'd be crazy to believe that people didn't write a storyline for a specific actor or actress.
Yeah.
But, you know, Tom Holland he auditioned how many times before he got that?
Yeah, true.
He had auditioned a bunch of times. He wasn't chosen for them to write this about him or write him in it.
No, 100%. Yeah.
Garfield is a little bit more different. He was basically chosen, you know. They
right by
him.
that director.
Yeah, and he's like the way he was eating that hamburger was just like Peter Parker. And
that's funny.
But you know, these people it's not their fault that they were good enough to be in this particular role. It's like don't get upset with them
for an actor taking a job.
They were taking a job,
right?
Like congratulate them, celebrate them, because this is something that, like, if they didn't continue to make Star Wars movies, everybody would be butthurt.
Yeah, that's true, and that's like
they just stopped the universe.
That's basically what like
after Jar Jar Binks. Yeah, you would have been pissed off.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you're right there. That would
Disney
leave a sour
taking
taste
over this particular universe, taking over the rights to it, that guarantees that you're going to still have, you're going to continue to have Star Wars in your life. Your kids are going to have Star Wars in your life, and your grandkids are, and your great grandkids.
Yes,
it's just going to continue to happen. Right. It's Disney,
and forever, as long as there's an Earth with people with money.
Yes,
right.
And as long as Disney is around, they're going to continue to milk any of their properties. That's why that's why they're making more Frozen movies.
And if they're good, then awesome. But like the ones that you fell in love with as a kid are still always going to be there. That's like when my wife and I have the argument of, do they recast Indiana Jones? And you know, she says how much she hates Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, and I'm like, yes, but like, does your opinion about Kingdom of the Crystal Skull affect how you feel about Raiders of the Lost Ark? Well, no.
Well,
okay, then. So, like, what is wrong with making one?
Did Batman and Robin, did that change your whole entire idea of like any other movie that you like?
Right. No, not at all. It's its own thing.
What was your favorite Batman movie?
Mask of the Phantasm.
Exactly. Well, the live action.
Dark Knight would be the best.
Does any of George Clooney's?
Not at all.
No.
Not at all. Doesn't affect it one iota.
The whole idea of they're going to ruin the whole thing for me.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever you talk about like you can't own these things, there are a lot of people that are going to be happy for this, and they're going to continue to do it regardless of what you think. Now, the fact that you keep harassing these people and making them feel like shit because they want to do it, that
affects who takes it.
That
affects who accepts a job. That does not affect who offers the job.
And there's been plenty of times, let's say like Black Panther.
Mm-hmm.
The main, let's say Shuri,
mm-hmm.
the girl that played Rue in the Hunger Games movies.
Okay.
She was tapped to play Shuri.
Okay.
She didn't take the role because she was too light skinned.
Interesting.
And she was just like, let's give this role to a more darker skinned, more person that
it makes sense. That would be from Africa, like right.
But there's different shades.
Yes.
But at the end of the day,
But I get that want for representation.
Yeah, the want for representation. But do you understand the hate that she probably would have gotten from her own community?
But see, and that's like, all right, so
because she took that job.
Exactly. On that same note, the actress is playing Batwoman in the upcoming CW show. I want to say Rose Wilson, but that's not it. That's the name of like Deathstroke's daughter or something. But she is bisexual in real life.
Yes.
Right? And the character is a lesbian.
I saw like
you know where I'm going with this?
I saw like.
So when she was cast, it was like she's not gay enough to play this character. Do y'all remember? All right, stretch your mind to think if Brokeback Mountain was made in 2019.
Ruby Rose, that's her name.
Ruby Rose. Use your imagination to think of if Brokeback Mountain was made in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
Would Heath Ledger and Donnie Darko, whatever the fuck his name is,
Jake Gyllenhaal.
Yeah, Jake Gyllenhaal. Would they be like just hounded and cast down like this because they're not actually gay?
Yes, he would.
I 100% agree with that.
Because it's happened before.
Yeah, and this is not 20 years ago.
There's been situations. There's been situations where people were, I think maybe Scarlett Johansson was supposed to play. Somebody was supposed to play a trans character, and
I think it was Scarlett. I remember
and the whole community
about this.
just like dumped on it because they're like, give more chances to trans people.
Which I'll agree, like that.
I agree to a certain extent.
Yes.
Boys Don't Cry
Mm-hmm.
with Hilary Swank won an Oscar.
Yeah.
Really good movie representation. She is not trans.
Right.
But does that make that movie any less
No,
impactful?
because she's a fucking actor. Like that's literally her job, is to be someone that she's not.
There's so many there's so many actors that are gay that play straight characters.
Perfect.
And there are so many straight actors that play gay characters.
And at that point, is it even acting anymore?
There's muddy waters there, and you can't sit there and because if somebody said, "Oh, they can't play this character because they're gay," and that guy's straight, there'd be a huge uproar.
Right.
And I understand the want of representation. Go out and it's easier said than done. Obviously, go out and try to get those roles.
Right.
That's why a lot of black people are doing things for their own.
Right.
Do your own.
Right.
So there's no.
If there's a story that you feel like you want to be told, odds are someone else wants that same story.
Yes.
Right. So like if it's something that you would read or that you would watch, odds are someone else is going to do that same thing. So go ahead and make that. Yeah, and so there was even this. There was an SNL skit I saw recently. It was the episode that Idris Elba hosted, and it was Kenan Thompson was doing this game show called "I Can Play That," and the contestants were only actors, and they would say different types of roles, and the actors would have to go through and say if they could play it or not, right? And like there was a right answer or a wrong answer, and like the very first one was Kenan Thompson was like, okay, a blind person. And Idris Elba buzzes in and he goes, oh, yeah, I can play that. And Keaton Thompson's like, oh, so God took their eyesight and you want to take their jobs now too? And like,
oh, okay.
Where does this fucking end? You know what I'm saying? Like,
I think there was a guy that was on Next Top Model. He was blind.
Mm-hmm.
No, deaf, not blind, deaf. And he was like, there should be a deaf Hawkeye. And
yeah, that would be cool.
But the MCU is not covering that universe.
Right.
Yes, Hawkeye is deaf, but only for a short period of time in the comic books. Not really like he's not actually deaf for that long. But I understand what you're saying, but it's not the universe. And you're only saying that one because you're like, oh, I'm deaf. Like, yeah.
Right. Yeah, it is kind of,
No, representation does matter.
It does.
It really does.
It totally does.
But at what point is it, like, there's certain things where actors really want to represent that particular, like, certain aspects. Why is it not okay?
Right. Tom Hanks doesn't have a learning disability.
No.
Does it make Forrest Gump, like, not as good of a movie?
In Gilbert Grape.
Yeah.
Leonardo DiCaprio did such a good job in that movie that they actually thought he had a learning disability. That he actually had a disability.
And then whatever guy it was that won that award for the Stephen Hawking movie.
What was it? Dang it.
Right, but he doesn't have that disease. You see what I'm saying? So, like, I can't. That is an aspect of Toxic Fandom that I will never understand. Of, like, they are actors. So they should change an aspect of themselves to fit a character, or else they're just not acting. They're just like, they're Matthew McConaughey at that point. They're just showing up and being themselves.
There's so many actors do that.
Right. Yeah. Vince Vaughn.
Robert Downey Jr. does it. Robert Downey Jr. Every character that he plays, he gives a Oscar award-winning performance for everything.
Robert Downey Jr.
The Judge. Which was a great movie. You seen The Judge?
No, but I know which movie you're talking about.
Amazing movie.
Right.
The Soloist. That was The Soloist with Jamie Foxx, I think that was.
Right.
Amazing movie. What was it? Due Date.
Right, but it's still all kind of him.
Basically
though.
just him.
Yeah.
Even with Tony Stark.
Yeah. And, I'm not asking everybody to be Daniel Day-Lewis or something.
Right.
But, like, you just...
Or Marlon Brando.
Yes, exactly. But, like, to expect this type of specificity from an actor to exactly fit the kind of role is ridiculous in my opinion.
You have so many characters, just like Robert Downey Jr., that the character is now molded by the actor.
Yes, no, that's very true. And I think you're going to see the same thing, especially with Captain America as well.
Yes. Because anybody can be Captain America. Anybody can be Iron Man. Not everybody can be Tony Stark.
Even you could wear the mask.
Yeah.
Right? Right, exactly. It's just Spider-Verse, if any of these handled this area well,
so much
is Into the Spider-Verse.
I'm a big Spider-Man fan.
Oh, yeah. To go back to the whole, does social media make this worse thing? We recently had a new actor cast as Batman this past week, right? And they announced that Rob Pattinson is going to be Batman in the Matt Reeves Batman movie. And, the internet at first reacted like how the internet does. Like oh my God. Sparkly vampire going to be back. Because, no one remembers a movie made by Rob Pattinson in the past, 10 years, I guess.
Look, I have my opinion on Rob Pattinson, but... The
point being, though, is that the reaction to this right now is magnified because of the internet. Mm-hmm. And people's memory... I don't know if we're fucking old now, or if people's memories are this short.
Those movies were less than 10 years ago.
Well, I'm going back to Michael Keaton here. Is
Michael
the
Keaton?
Point. Right. When Michael Keaton was cast as Batman in the 89 movie, there was a section of the fan base, a large section, that flipped their shit. Because at the time, what is Michael Keaton known for? He's Mr. Mom.
Yep.
Right? And and what is Tim Burton known for? Pee-wee's Big Adventure. So if the guy that made Pee-wee's Big Adventure and the guy who was the star of Mr. Mom get together and say they're making a Batman movie, which version do you think that's going to be? Probably closer to the Adam West version, right? Which is what people didn't want in the 80s.
You know what?
But it's not what we got.
You forget that they're directors and actors, that they can literally do anything. Now, not every director and not every actor
changes their style.
Yeah,
or anything like that.
everybody, like their directors and their actors that stick to that one
Yeah,
shtick.
but like, let's take even Jim Carrey. Even Jim Carrey eventually broke out of the stupid. Jeff Daniels does amazing dramatic roles, and both of those guys are in Dumb and Dumber.
Right.
It's just people drive me crazy sometimes with this type of stuff. But point being, I think if there was social media back in 1980, I guess maybe it was 87, let's say, is when it was cast, because it came out in 89, that you would have seen the same just like toxic reaction, and almost sometimes that can like kill a movie before it's even made. The people that were
already
mad,
have your mind made up,
Yeah.
and you're just like, oh, this is not going to be good.
the people that were mad at Captain Marvel before they even walked in the movie theater and saw what it was, that they were just upset that this like female superhero was getting a prominent role in
I never got
Marvel.
that. I never understood that because it's Marvel.
Yes.
There's so many female characters,
Right.
and you just got Wonder Woman.
Yeah, and you didn't really see it with Wonder Woman. At least I didn't see it with Wonder Woman, really.
I felt like I think a
But
lot more
then-
people were upset by her political views than that.
But there is also a male version of Captain Marvel, though, which might be where some people like got their cape hung up on, if you will.
That,
where there's
you know,
not a male version of Wonder Woman.
That was a lot. That has a lot more to do with losing the rights of the name. What are you talking about, like
I'm
Shazam
saying
versus-
within Marvel
Oh,
universe.
Okay,
there's-
so I've had that
right.
conversation. I had a friend who was just like, after Endgame came out, and he was like, who is the strongest Avenger? And everybody was like, Captain Marvel, Captain Marvel, Captain Marvel. And then I was like, personally, if I were to say who's the strongest Avenger, in my opinion, there's a lot of others. I was like, I feel like Carol Danvers is very strong. I felt like they kind of like overpowered her to a certain extent, or gave her character a little bit more, of a upper,
More oomph.
Yeah, a little bit more of oomph in the movie than they did in the comic books, because for the longest time she was just kind of like there.
Yeah.
She was strong, but her powers were given to her.
Yes.
She was almost about to die. Captain Marvel.
Yeah, Mar-Vel.
Yeah, and he gave her the powers.
Yeah.
And so she took on the mantle. So it was
Right.
like what I was saying earlier, just a lot of mantle giving in comic books. But I said that to me it would be Scarlet Witch after reading House of M, which is one of my favorite events.
Sure, the movies haven't really like unlocked
That is the character, in my
and then
opinion,
is she
that
her
they have
own like
nerfed the most.
Infinity Gauntlet at that point. That's why I don't think you'll see that version where she goes, okay, there's no more mutants. I don't think
3
you'll see
words,
that.
no more mutants.
Right.
Eradicated 95% of the mutant population, changed reality.
But that's basically what we just saw in Infinity Wars, right? Except you just sub out mutants for like the
Gave-
50% of the population.
Literally, yeah, but it wasn't done by her, though.
I agree. I'm just saying I don't think you'll see that in movies.
You will not see that in movies, because that's like, you would have to bring in X-Men.
Yeah.
And that's going to be a
It's
whole
too
nother-
close.
Too close. And, I had to sit down. I was like, it would be, to me, this person, and then maybe, throw out the Sentry, and then you throw out Hulk, because those two are the only ones that you can, like, really put in a battlefield together. I was like, the Sentry killed a god with his bare hands, ripped Ares' face in half.
Right.
I think it was Siege, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
And looked at Thor and was like, do I have to kill another god today? The only person that could beat the Hulk to a bloody pulp in World War Hulk was the Sentry. And I'm looking at your shoebox, and there's literally a picture of the Sentry right there. Next to Captain America.
Yeah.
And, I think with my issues with that character is just they kind of like gave her a little bit more of a prominent role. And not saying they gave her more of a prominent role, like she didn't deserve it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of different types of Captain Marvels. They did the latest version of Carol Danvers.
Yep.
Because she didn't go by Captain Marvel for a minute. They just said Carol Danvers.
Yes.
So
which I'm like, I don't care.
cool.
Her,
you know,
right.
This is a dope character.
Mm-hmm.
Dope character. That whole hate for Captain Marvel was ridiculous.
Right, and again, before you even came into the movie theater, like you walked in with just, you knew you weren't gonna like it because you'd already made your mind up.
I just hate
It's
just making dudes look so bad whenever they do that. It's just making.
How do you think I feel as a white guy?
Oh my
Like,
god! I can only imagine, man.
Right? Yeah. Like it's like, come on,
I
guys.
can only
like,
imagine.
Like let's get our shit together.
There was also toxicity around like Black Panther when it came out, and it was just like we were just representation matters. We were so happy to just see like another like a full cast of African Americans and Africans, and it's just Black people on screen representing a culture that and a great story.
Right.
And then you see so many people. Why does it have to be about being Black? I was like, because it's not like another character where you can literally put him behind a mask. Black Panther's roots are, his background's rooted in Africa. Mm-hmm. So yes, this is a groundbreaking thing. And then there's a bunch of people just like, well, Black Panther's not the very first Black superhero, and I was like, technically he is. So let's get that. Technically, he is.
Okay.
On timestamp wise.
And even then, like,
they want to throw out all these different, like, they want to throw out, Blade.
Sure.
And
yeah,
Blade is an anti-hero.
Okay.
And that's not. And he was never even posed to be they would never pose him as a superhero. Mm-hmm. That movie was actually a horror thriller action movie.
Yeah, that movie's awesome.
Out. It's amazing.
Right.
Oh my god, I love Blade.
Yeah, didn't that come out before The Matrix? I feel like The Matrix
came out in 96,
wow.
90, like it was
That's
late
crazy.
90s when it came out.
Yeah, and Matrix 1 is 99. So that's nuts. But yeah,
that was a new Millennium movie.
Right.
And so it revolutionized what you could do with
so
cinema.
Many things tried to copy that.
Then they tried to do their own. They tried to recreate what the next two movies, and it just wasn't happening. Just branch off and make a bigger thing. You don't have to try to be as convoluted as you were the first time.
Right.
That's like the biggest issue with it.
Yep.
And they're going to continue with the universe. If you continue with the universe, please, like, just make the story. There's so many different things you could branch off of. Don't try to be the whole. What was it? The person that created the Matrix. That whole scene,
right?
In the white room and all the TVs was just so convoluted and so unnecessary.
Yeah, it really got in its own way there, especially with the last two. But no, staying on Avengers here, and
sorry,
no, you're good. I get on Reddit a good bit, and I saw a post where someone was talking about this. Have you heard of anti-cheese cuts or anti-cheese edits? Mm-mm. Okay, it's the first I had heard of this dark section of the internet as well. Right, just when you think it can't get any worse.
Oh my god!
So someone made a Avengers Endgame bootleg edit. All right, one already illegal, but let's move aside that. So this anti-cheese cut is defeminized and AKA a straight white male edition. Like, and I'm reading straight here from, this is not my own words, this is from this post about it. And it's the person who made the video describing what makes this edit different from the actual edit. Now, again, there's some, Avengers spoilers in here, so if you haven't seen the movie, don't listen to this.
Yeah.
But I'm going to read to you, and again, these are not the words of Carter Hutchison, right? I'm reading straight from what the person who made the video says is the different in the edits. So first, it says absolutely no Brie Larson, neither in the beginning nor in the finale.
What?
Yep, just no Brie Larson.
She plays a major character.
At all. Yep. Most quips edit out to give more consistent, serious tone.
Oh my god!
Right.
Oh my.
So taking out, and it specifically names the Fortnite joke, the dab joke, the America's ass joke, and the empty gauntlet snap.
We're gonna touch on that part later.
Dude, well, there's a bunch. So the Stan Lee themed Marvel intro from Captain Marvel should have been in the beginning, is what they're saying. This should have, anyways. No Hawkeye training his daughter.
What?
Young women learn skills to become good wives and mothers and leave the fighting to men. Again, not the words of Carter Hutchison, it's straight here.
Right.
Right. No women leader conferences. No gay support group talk. So the like PTSD, the group that Cap's leading.
Dude's talking about dating another guy. Yeah, it's life.
Right. That scene where Black Widow is leading whatever is left of the Avengers, and there's a bunch of women that are, the heads of the different areas.
It would make more sense.
Yeah. Let's see. I'm going to skip around some of these.
Please.
Right. Oh, wow. Tony doesn't ask his wife's permission to save the universe. That's in here.
That changes the whole entire tone of the whole
their relationship
series.
And
Just the whole series in general.
Right, like you haven't been paying attention to Peppa and
Pepper is like the one person that
it's
puts
Tony's
him in
rock.
check.
Yeah, exactly. And you're right. It's the only person that can like question Tony really. But I guess if this is as a straight white male myself, like I do not assign to this, right? Like, I don't understand the need to feel this way.
Carter is on the good side of history, guys. Just remember that. He's just reading
don't understand
a post.
Right. Let's see. Female sorceress gets scared of Hulk and just leaves him the stone. Their talk was a giant plot hole anyways. No Nebula Wi-Fi. She gets kidnapped and they read her memory. Tony doesn't meet his dad. Thor doesn't meet his mom. It's pointless.
What?
Right. No Thor being told he can't wield the gauntlet. Hulk just says he will do it. Thor's whining is reduced. Sadly, he's unsalvageable in general, but I did the best to make him more dignified.
Did you not watch did you not watch half of the movie?
No, we're clearly not watching the same. This movie's gonna be like 20 minutes long when they're done with it.
Yeah, there's literally nothing.
Let's see. Black Panther isn't the first revived Avenger to arrive and gets a bit less time. He's really not that important, and no Wanda chant. I'm not gonna. They use another word before that, and I'm not gonna give that the airspace here. Women in the final battle severely reduced. They should be at home taking care of their kids. In particular, Pepper has no business being there. Does she want her daughter to become an orphan? Wanda's final battle scene is gone. Make everyone else look useless. No Quill getting kicked in his balls for no reason. No Tony dying in Pepper's arms because she isn't there. Boy.
So she doesn't even get to see her husband die.
Right, because they would edit her out practically entirely.
This movie seems so there's no way you're gonna cut all of this to make any sense.
Right.
It's just gonna be a bunch of little clips.
Yeah, exactly. Might as well just go to YouTube and watch a bunch of.
Just go to YouTube and watch what you want to watch. Every clip of the movie.
Valkyrie, he wants to take out of it because she wouldn't become queen.
Have you ever read a comic book?
Right. Less kitchen psychology is what he calls it.
What would that be?
So an example he gives is, quote, she knows, period, they all do, as in like women know best kind of idea. So I believe that is what he's referring to when he says kitchen psychology, which...
That was a dope part of the movie.
Yeah, but like the phrase kitchen psychology,
oh my God.
Jesus Christ.
Who raised you in...
For real, they did a shit-ass job.
Because it's just like, you have a mother.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly, yeah. And like, I'm sure you're an incel on 4chan here.
What type of complicit white woman? I'm sorry.
I mean, yeah. It's there. You can't say that it's not there.
It's like...
Right.
There's so many
that is just,
women that are black, white, Asian, Hispanic on the right side of history. And there's just so much complicity.
Right.
Just between, it's like, don't be that person. Be better.
2016 is a great example of that. When, your president says, when you're sorry, you can do anything. You can grab them by the pussy. And
you have a whole bunch of women just saying,
and
yeah, there was locker room talk.
Exactly. An entire network, an entire news channel writes it off as, quote, locker room talk. Oh, boys will be boys. Boys. Well, I don't know about you, Huey, but I have never grabbed a woman by the pussy that didn't want it.
No.
Right.
I have a son, and if he ever acted like that, I know Muay Thai.
Yes.
He will know that too, but he will know who's better at it.
I just, I feel like I'm groaning a lot this episode, but like,
See, and this is what we're talking about. This is why I say that we can talk about Toxic Fandom for days, because it just keeps going. It's not just like one of those things that just like you just have that, like, oh, it just happened one period of time in history. No, it's just constantly going. There's so many people that just feel like they can just, like you said earlier, they have ownership to it. And it's like the ownership gives you right to be an asshole. Like, it gives this guy a right to be sexist, racist, just misogynistic,
and all in one like shitty burrito of a internet. Just like, what is this, all this wrong with the internet? Just
and you know the messed up part about it is somebody, probably a few hundred people, because there's a lot of people in the world
that.
Downloaded
like,
that.
Oh, thank goodness, this is for me.
Yes, and they're going to give him validation.
Yep. Right.
And people just want to feel validated.
Yeah.
Which is why Alabama's having the situation that they're having right now, because people just wants to feel validated. Sorry.
Yeah, you're right. It's
toxicity.
Well, and it makes it not all this. Let's take a step back here, and this is maybe like big picture. What is wrong with Toxic Fandom? This is supposed to be fun. These are silly. At the end of the day, these are silly characters that we're getting all wrapped up about, right?
And I totally understand what you were saying when we were talking about Star Wars before, and it was just, you have like this strong connection, to this to what you have. But you're
a lot of my childhood, I'm pretending to be Luke Skywalker.
Yes, and so you're forgetting that this is a big world and other people exist in it. It's a fictional world, but other people live
Black,
in it.
Brown, purple, orange, green, black
Go to
and
that
red,
point, we were talking about
with little
like,
horny spikes.
we were talking about like this group, because we were part of this group on Facebook, and it was just about who's going to be the next gay character in.
Well, because Kevin Feige came out and said that one of the Avengers was going to come out as LGBTQ.
Yeah, and my argument was, how about introduce another character that is canon, that is actually gay,
instead of like annexing another character into
because Carol Danvers, because there are people like, it's going to be Carol.
I think it's going to be Carol too,
but it's not even canon.
Yeah, I know.
She's she's with War Machine. Like, they're dating right now.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
So this is an interracial relationship. Which
wait, does he have the armor back?
Yeah.
Oh man, last I saw Punisher had it.
No, he has it back.
That was sweet though. That's an awesome idea.
Yeah.
You give the Punisher War Machine. Yeah.
Oh, Carol Danvers took that back real quick.
Oh, word. That makes sense.
She took it back.
Right.
But there's so crazy bullcrap.
But just because you didn't like something doesn't mean that you then have to make sure that everybody else doesn't like it too. Like,
because back in the day, people just wrote fan letters and just wrote hate mail. That's why we have hate mail. And nowadays, the hate mail, I can just get on my phone and I can just type my hate mail and then just at whoever it is that I hate
instantly. And then usually your social media is already like kind of curated to be this echo chamber of your own opinions. So the people that follow you probably share some of the same views that you do. So whatever, like, if you have shitty followers from your shitty views, then your shitty views are going to get amplified by your shitty followers.
Yes. Somebody agrees with somebody out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm not even going to act like I haven't been a part of like some type of because And it's not because I hate I
Right.
love to hate things. I really truly don't like Teen Titans Go. I truly don't like. I tried it.
Yeah.
Don't like it.
That's fair. That's
And
fine.
you know,
We've talked about this.
and you know,
off-
your argument
off,
was
microphone a lot.
And your argument was
Uh-huh.
it's not for us.
It's not.
But you watch it anyway.
Well, because my kids watch it.
Yes, and you find
I find
things-
parts that I like of it.
Yes,
Absolutely.
I can't.
No.
I can't.
No.
I still watch. My kids are watching Adventure Time right now.
Mhm.
And the thing that really kind of throws me off about my own views on that is my daughter loves Uncle Grandpa.
Uh-huh.
Loves Uncle Grandpa.
Mhm.
And, you know, there will be times where after they leave the house and it's still on the television because my daughter gets up in the morning. She's like, I want to watch Uncle Grandpa. I want to watch Uncle Grandpa. And then I turn it on the phone and put it on the Chromecast. And then I just like lay back down.
Right.
And
Your mornings sound eerily similar to mine.
yeah. And then after they leave, I'll still have it on. And I'm just like paying attention to it. And I'm like,
Yep.
some of this is
That's the
actually
true
like
mark of
well
parenthood,
written.
Right.
Like,
It's
some
like,
of
how long do you stay on Peppa Pig after the kids have left the room?
Yeah.
Type thing.
Oh, dude, with Ninjago.
See, that's one I haven't been able to get into.
Karen and I watched Ninjago.
Well, that's
and
funny.
we got into it. We got into Race to the Edge, which is a How to Train Your Dragon show. It's the
Oh,
Netflix
okay.
show, and that show's amazing.
Dude, right now, Valen's on these Beyblade things. I think it's fucking stupid, and it's really hard for me to
I'm not even gonna lie, dude. I used to watch Beyblade. I just rewatched Metal Fusion, and that's an actual really good. Because look, think about it like this. It's funny to watch it because all these kids are just they'll
They're yelling at their spinny tops.
Yeah, but they hold like spirits in them, and
So, but that's what is it machine? But then they say it evolves some.
Yeah.
Literally, like me watching Beyblade along with him, I totally now understand how my parents felt when I was in Pokemon. Like, I don't understand any of this. I'm legit trying to, and it might as well be like as soon as he turns it on, it's the voice of the Charlie Brown teachers.
well, it's like Metal Fusion was something I watched when I was still in like high school because it's anime,
Right.
it's anime, so I like anime, and the thing about that show is like you're watching it and you're listening to these kids talk about these like it doesn't matter who it is, somehow they always become some type of like mechanical engineer, and they just
Like immediately.
yeah.
I mean, yeah.
And the explanations of it is just like, these kids are way smarter than me.
Just ridiculous. But again, so big picture fandom here. These properties are not that serious. Even
No.
something like Game of Thrones. It makes me think of the several lines from The Dark Knight. Actually, first of all, of course, why it's so serious.
Right.
Right. Like I think that's a lesson that it is so ironic that was the catchphrase for that or the tagline for that movie. And then that movie is what caused DC to go down this, like, okay, all of our movies are going to be this dark and gritty tone. And then it took itself way too seriously. And then that's what people hated.
Tony
And
Stark
it's just-
emoji.
Right. It's just very ironic that that's all looped in there together. But the second one, and I think this is very applicable with Game of Thrones, is you either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. That people loved this series, right, for 7 seasons. And then it got to that last one, and they did not die as the hero. They lived to see themselves become the villain, just like Dany, really. But we need to realize that we are living in this golden age of geekdom, and just because you didn't like something doesn't mean that you have to make sure that everyone else doesn't like it as well.
I think that it all.
There's a person out there who Batman and Robin is their favorite Batman movie.
Yes.
And that's okay. Like, that is not any less valid than my opinion that Mask of the Phantasm is the
I
best
don't
one.
hate it as much as everybody else did.
See,
I like the
right.
campiness of it. I liked it for what it was.
I get this a lot on the James Bond subreddit. That, like, movies like From Russia with Love and stuff are probably considered, or Goldfinger or GoldenEye are up there as like the top Bond movies, right? And some of the worst ones unanimously are usually like Die Another Day. Like, I saw someone else saying that, like, Die Another Day was their favorite Bond movie. So, like, who am I to be like, no, you're wrong. Your opinion about what you like and dislike is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, I'm going to make you feel bad for that. Like, I just don't, I don't understand that instinct.
Now, there are times where people can be wrong. Not in what you like, but in how you present, the ideas of certain things.
Sure.
Yes, there are.
But and, like, this is another problem, too, that if you want to go back to politics, that, like, the Democrats have. We become a circular firing squad sometimes. And it's a lot of those posts on Twitter as well, where it'll have, like, 4 pictures of, like, different heroes, and it'll be like, one has to go. Have you seen those?
I've
what I'm talking about?
They'll do that with that. They'll do that with food.
All that does is divide fandoms. Is to invite fandoms to come in and be like, no, my fandom's better than your fandom, and here's why.
I always have the argument. It's just like, I just don't like your fandom. It's not that my fandom is better than yours. It's just, a lot of people, the fandom itself will drive people away from the franchise.
Yes.
I will say it. Batman is one of the main fandoms that will drive people away from Batman, and that is one of the reasons why.
I would say Star Wars, to be honest with you.
I would say, yeah. If we're gonna put it in like a ranking system, I feel like that would be maybe top 2, Batman in my opinion, and then you can throw Superman in there. But
I also think there's this, and this is a phrase used in sports, mostly like I've heard it with college football. You don't want to be the man that follows the man, right? You want to be the man that follows the man who followed the man. So, like, Nick Saban's dominating in Alabama, right? As much as an Auburn fan, it pains me to say that. No, exactly. I pity the coach that follows Nick Saban, because the expectations that fan base will have to put upon that coach will not be realistic.
Oh, and
in their minds,
they're going to turn on him.
Exactly.
Real quick.
In their minds, Nick Saban has won infinite national championships,
which
right?
Is
and it's only going to get worse when he retires and is like gone, because then it's just memory and nostalgia at that point.
He's made enough money.
Yes. So that coach, I give him maybe 4 to 5 years before he'll be gone. Really, no matter who he is.
And then the person,
but the coach that follows that, has a legit chance.
Because at least he's not as bad as the person after Nick Saban.
Totally. So, like, Christian Bale is great, right? Do you want to be Ben Affleck and follow Christian Bale? Or do you want to be Rob Pattinson, who now gets to follow Ben Affleck, that people pretty much, majority didn't really like?
I've actually heard majority of the people that I talked to, they were like, his Batman was
His Batman was fine. The movies around it were not good.
You're only as good as the movie, the script that's actually presented to you.
Well, and I would say his Batman and Batman vs. Superman is good. I think he phones in a good bit of Justice League, but he was already mentally checked out at that point. I mean, you can tell he's not as physically fit in Justice League. There's no like CrossFit scene like there was in BVS where he's lifting all those tires and chains and whatnot.
That's what I love about Marvel movies, man.
The Marvel Labs.
Dude. You'll take a person that you'll be like, there's no way that this person can
Fat Pratt. Fat Pratt. You can't take Fat Chris Pratt.
Andy,
right?
Freaking Andy.
But yeah, he gave him the Marvel Labs. Paul Rudd, Marvel Labs.
Paul Rudd looks great.
Yeah.
And he plays.
I know, for an 80-year-old man, he's looking wonderful.
Yeah. Because Paul Rudd's been in
he's immortal. It's science.
He's been in literally everything since 1923.
Yeah, I love his role in The Great Train Robbery. It's phenomenal. You can really see where he got his inspiration for Clueless from that.
He looks the exact same.
It's weird. It's ridiculous. In the same way of like Tom Cruise barely ages. I don't know.
I don't want to get controversial, but I think he does a lot of plastic surgery.
I mean, maybe, yeah. And also like, what story? It's almost like the like Michael Jackson stories. Like, is there a story about Tom Cruise or Michael Jackson that would like surprise you?
No.
Like, if I told you that Tom Cruise was injecting sperm cells into his face to stay young, would you be like, That's far-fetched, Carter.
I think after Scientology, there's nothing that will be able to surprise me by time.
It's the same thing with like I think it's some stand-up comedian. It might be John Mulaney that was talking about how like because of the medications and stuff that Michael Jackson was on, like even he didn't really know like if some of the stories were right. Like a reporter would be like, "I heard you bought the Elephant Man's bones. Is that right?" And he's like, "I don't know. You know, I like."
He's like, "You're telling me this, I don't."
Right.
It sounds
probably. It sounds like something I might do.
Sounds like something I would do.
It sounds like a story that would maybe happen to Michael Jackson.
It was like a video.
But I don't fucking know.
There's a video of Michael Jackson like just buying a bunch of like lavish shit, just bunch of shit, and just like, oh, this is gonna go in my house. This is gonna go in that other house that I have. Yep. And then the caption of the video is that this video just told me to shut my broke ass up.
Yeah, for real.
I was just dying.
Well, you're talking to the same guy that like, or you're talking about the same guy who on a whim bought the Beatles songs. Like I've seen Paul McCartney telling that story where him and Paul McCartney and Michael Jackson are hanging out, right? And Paul's even
I
like
those songs.
And he goes, I want to buy your songs. And Paul even does the Michael Jackson voice. It's really funny. And Paul's like, I thought he was kidding. We're just a couple mates, playing around. But then, yeah, like fucking a month or two later, Michael Jackson bought the Beatles songs. And they didn't even go back. That's why after when Michael Jackson died, you saw the Beatles songs hit Apple. That's because those rights like reverted. But anyways, to put a bow on our topic of toxic fandom, just because you don't like something doesn't mean that you have to make everyone else hate it as well. There's enough hate and vitriol out there on the world, and especially on the internet, that like you don't need to add more. And it would be very nice of you to try to put something positive out there instead of something negative.
Now, we can go into something completely different where we talk about, get away from the hate speech. And I'm a big anime fan. Huge anime fan. And the group that I invited you in, it's a lot of anime speech. There's a lot of toxicity when it comes to okay, so we can go as far as like people that we were talking about people that don't like things, right? My favorite anime is One Piece.
Yeah.
There's a lot of toxicity around One Piece that are not just the fandom, because the fandom is like there's 800 and some episodes. Perfectly fine. Totally understand that. There's like they keep coming out with like more Pokemon, and you will continue to watch more Pokemon. That shit's been coming out since somebody will.
Right, exactly. It's not for me.
It's not. I mean, I like Pokemon. Right. I like the idea of like all the new Pokemon come out.
You're right, sure.
But
I'm not gonna watch a bunch of Pokemon.
Yeah, I understand that.
Right.
But like, it's just let's say like with One Piece, there's a bunch of people are always like, I just wish that it would end. I'm like, dude, you don't need. How many episodes have you actually watched? I watched like maybe 5 episodes. I couldn't really get into the story. Like, it was way too kiddie for me. I'm like, dude, One Piece is too kiddie for you. And if you listened to this and you've watched One Piece, you know damn well it's just not kiddie.
And then why does that person's opinion matter at that point?
Yeah, like, it's just the whole idea of like, I don't really, like this because of the animation style. I'm like, dude, it's anime. Some people are just like, I don't like this anime because it's just not realistic anime. And
wow.
And it's just, there's so much just like
suspend your disbelief, bro.
Yeah, it's like, oh, this anime's trash. And I'm like, how is it trash? It's a masterpiece. And then we talk about like, there's a lot of like continuity things and a lot of like, there's a lot of toxicity around like turning anime into a live action thing. I want to talk about Death Note.
Okay.
Have you ever seen Death Note?
No.
Death Note is a great anime where Light Yagami, he finds a book given him by Shinigami, which is translated to like Death Angel. You've never seen Bleach before. You don't really watch a lot of anime or anything like that. And so there's a big controversy that they turned Death Note into a live action movie. I remember
seeing that on Netflix.
Yeah.
Like scrolling past it.
It's horrible.
That's what I heard.
It's so bad.
Yeah.
And that's just a regular
But honestly,
person.
has there ever been a good live adaptation of an anime? I'll hang up and listen.
I've heard that the Naruto and Bleach movies were really good. There's a lot of I say there's toxicity around it because, my whole thing was source material. A lot of people were just like, oh, these characters are not Asian. These characters are not.
Right.
It was a big reimagining of the storyline.
Okay.
And so a lot of people were just kind of writing it off before it even was created.
Yeah.
I actually decided to watch it. It was bad. It was horrible. It was not the actual storyline. It was the idea of turning, this character that wasn't actually Light Yagami into what it's based in Japan in the anime. The movie is in Portland, Oregon.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Hey, that's like putting Dragon Ball in a high school.
Oh my goodness.
Oh wait.
You should write it down.
Right, that shit happened too.
That was
Jesus.
And sometimes whenever you have those it can't sometimes the thing that creates toxicity is just the constant money grab for certain things.
Yeah.
And it's very irritating whenever
is.
you have some Death Note, which is a great anime, and you turn it into something which is supposed to be a psychological thriller, and then you turn it into a Friday night teen drama thriller,
right?
Because it's American.
Yeah, and you're trying to make money off of that genre.
I had arguments with people. They're like, well, the creators can make it however they want to. And I'm like, I totally understand that. But source material matters.
It does.
Source material matters.
It does. Or else, it's my same argument with the Zendaya version of Mary Jane. It's not Mary Jane.
It's not Mary Jane.
They call her Michelle the whole movie. And, if she has literally zero characteristics of the actual character Mary Jane, then, what are names? What are characters? Right?
Peter Parker could be, James Dolan.
Yeah, sure. James Dolan, bitten by a
radioactive.
I was gonna say a gamma ray. Right. Sure. Just
it's
hodgepodge, whatever the fuck around it.
What is source material?
Right.
I always have this argument with Karen, and I'm just like, she's a big John Green fan, huge John Green fan. Back in the day when it was him and his brother with the Vlog Brothers, and they were calling themselves the Nerd Fighters, and they had a huge fan base. I was like, what if Fault in Our Stars was not Fault in Our Stars? What if they created that movie and the movie was not at all what the book was, but it was being called Fault in Our Stars? You know how many people
would be pissed about that?
Yeah. And I was like, sometimes the lack of propriety by the studios and everybody that is creating the live action or the adaptations, they will create a toxic fandom.
Yes. Well, yeah. But, Hollywood is driven by the almighty dollar. Yeah. Right? That's we were asking, we were talking off air before we started recording about why make another Batman movie, really? And it's because Batman makes fucking money.
Makes fucking money.
Right?
Doesn't even matter how toxic that fan base is. They are super toxic. Batman can beat anybody.
Okay, that's that kind of toxic that you want to go. All right, I'm not. I'm no master fisherman, but I know bait when I see it, and I'm not.
Oh no, I'm not baiting you because we don't ever have that argument.
Yeah, we could though.
No, we couldn't. You guys, if you haven't, you guys, then I'll plug somebody. Or I'll plug a channel that I love, Screw Attack, on YouTube. Will completely well, there's certain things that I agree with, certain things that I don't, but for the most part, they're really good at squashing arguments.
Yeah.
Batman
with prep time and all that.
Yeah, which is not a game mechanic. That is not a mechanic at all. It's not at all. But anyway.
Game mechanic.
Or not game. It's just not a mechanic that you could use in an argument whatsoever. You can't.
Okay. But I want to end this discussion on an up note. Actually take our own advice of we're sitting here bitching about toxic fandom, really.
Yeah,
for
basically
over an hour and 20 minutes at this point.
Oh, it's been that long.
Yeah,
Damn.
exactly. That's why I want to.
I could do that for a little bit longer.
I know we could do a part 2 of this at some point. Listen, I'm sure when episode 9 comes out and people hate it, we can talk about this.
We can talk
again.
about that. And fuck you guys.
But again, like, if you don't like something, you don't. What'd your mama tell you when you were growing up?
If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it at all.
Nailed it. Fucking nailed it, man. And like, who is a great example of positive fandom is Kevin Smith.
Yes, it's true.
Kevin Smith. If you listen to Fat Man on Batman, or what is now called Fat Man Beyond, right?
He's amazing. I love
Right.
Kevin Smith.
Yeah, me too. But he says that he gets some shit online for people being like, all you ever do is like blow this movie. Like you all you do is like suck the dick of every Marvel movie that comes out and just tell us how great it is and whatnot.
He's a fan.
Right. And like his response back is, well, I tend to not talk about things that I don't like.
Right.
Right. Like, I wasn't that big on Batman vs Superman, so I'm not going to spend certain like episodes upon episodes.
He's a big Batman fan.
Exactly.
If you ever watched,
and that's his friend, that's his buddy up there.
Ben Affleck, he's put Ben Affleck in all of his movies.
Yeah, they're no longer as close as they used to be, but that's a Jennifer Gardner problem, not a Ben Affleck and Kevin Smith problem. That's a Jennifer Gardner's a massive bitch problem. But that's neither here nor there.
My wife loves Jennifer.
I'm sorry. I could see if I had a friend like Kevin Smith, my wife being like, "You're hanging out with like your stoner buddy again," But I don't know. That sounds like Jennifer Gardner being like, "Kevin Smith, you really want him like coming over to like our? You sure?" I don't know. I just see her being a little uptight.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. Is like, oh, we were friends first.
Exactly. Before she even came into the picture.
If you were not in a movie,
yeah,
I put you in one.
Exactly. But yeah, like let's like just be like Kevin Smith, right? Like if you don't like something, it's okay to not talk about it. And then it's actually even better if you don't watch or pay for that what thing that you're hating on. If you think that the Star Wars Disney movies have been shit, don't pay to go see episode 9. Because you are voting with your money at that point.
Yeah.
Like, everyone that tuned in to episode 6 of the Game of Thrones finale.
If you didn't like the season, why did you watch it?
Right, yeah. You're voting with your time right there. And the HBO executives are going to see the, like, ridiculous numbers for people that tuned in. And that's what they're going to care about.
And that's what I was saying.
That's the bottom line.
I was saying people just don't want to not be a part of that.
Exactly.
That history. And
exactly. So if you don't like it, don't see it.
Have you ever seen? You've seen Mallrats before, right?
Yeah.
So like, was it Brody?
Mm-hmm.
James Lee.
Yeah, Jason Lee.
Jason Lee's character. That is the
toxic fan.
The toxic fan, and he is the epitome.
Right. Everybody knows somebody like him.
Everybody knows some character like that because at the end of the day, like he spends all of his time talking about comic books.
Right.
He finally meets Stan Lee, and all he could talk about is the sexual reproductive
of like She-Hulk, was it? Or
it was like Hulk. And his penis.
Like why the pants didn't rip or something like that.
Yeah, like
and
why
he
didn't
said naked Hulk?
Yeah, and then whenever he went up to his buddy, he was just like he might want to get some help because all he really cares about is just
his Hulk penis.
Yeah, because at one point in the movie he was just talking about who Superman should have a baby with, and he was just.
What, this is the Wonder Woman or Lois Lane argument.
Yeah, and he was just like, but it's not even like who he would be better suited for. It was just like if you were to ejaculate in her, they would just shoot right through Lois.
Well, that's a. Have you seen that Robot Chicken skit where the Metropolis police find Lois dead in her apartment? And she's she's on the floor next to like a recliner chair, and there's a hole out the back of her head. And Clark is acting very suspicious at the scene. So read into this, what you will.
What happened? Yeah, just don't. You don't have to watch these things. You
Right.
don't have to sit there. And I guess like if
These
you
are
are
really silly concepts that shouldn't be taken.
and I
this
totally get
seriously.
I
This
totally
is
get
fun.
the
I
understanding.
know that you
of
love it.
Yeah, if you love it, I
Right.
totally understand. And you know, it's just like with Dragon Ball Z, and everybody wants to be like too much filler, too much filler. We were talking about that earlier, and it was just like it's called character development.
Character development. Yeah.
It's not something that you really can get rid of.
Right.
And they tried to do that with Dragon Ball Z Kai, and it was just like really short. But it was just like those things, those episodes that you just hate and you have to always talk crap about. You don't have to watch them.
Right.
They created a whole series for you.
Yep.
To watch if you didn't like all the exposition, which is completely needed. You probably don't need to read manga then,
Right.
because it's all exposition.
Yeah.
If you didn't like, and I could totally understand. I have a friend who's like, my only gripe with the last season of Game of Thrones is the lack of exposition
Yeah.
between the time.
Yep, and I'll agree with that we could have had more character developing moments.
But they'll be
between
waiting a
big
long
events.
time for things that are actually going to be canon in the book. They're going to
Yes.
be waiting a long time for it, so
Yeah.
that's why they had to end it.
True, and
And-
that's probably why some fans feel that way, is because there's not the books to fill in the mental head canon.
But you wanting to do a whole petition, sorry
To
keep droning
remake
on,
it,
but you
yeah.
got to also understand that those characters or those actors are probably
They're done.
They're burnt out.
Well, and like they have contracts.
Yes.
Like you think it says like in their contract, like you're signed on for 8 seasons unless one of those seasons isn't well received. In which point, then
And-
we're going to remake it, and you're not going to receive double pay for that.
It's the same reason why Robert Downey Jr. is done.
Well, yeah. I told my buddy last night. I was like, "Yeah, Chris Evans and Chris Evans and Robert Downey Jr. aren't making these Marvel movies anymore because they decided they don't like money." But,
Yeah, and I understand. I understand that. But between Iron Man and now Robert Downey Jr. You got to understand.
It's
Iron
a
Man-
lifetime.
Iron Man was
2008.
that was his introduction
Yep.
back into Hollywood.
Yep.
And he's
Yeah,
been
out
in,
of movie jail.
Yeah, and he's been in several movies that were box office smashes.
Yeah.
And that includes like Due Date, The Soloist, The Judge. And
These
then
are
he-
well received too, as well.
Yeah, and
I think,
Tropic Thunder.
Yeah, true.
I'm playing dude disguised as another dude.
Right.
It's,
Oh man. Yeah, you
If
never
there's
go. You
any
never go full
character-
Targaryen.
if there's any character, any dude that could play a blackface character and be well received,
Apparently, it's Robert Downey Jr.
it's Robert Downey Jr.
Again, I think if you try that movie in 2019, though, you probably don't get the same result.
You just leave it where it's at and let people still love it.
Yeah. So to summarize, be like Kevin Smith.
Yeah.
Let's have a little less toxic fandom in the world and a little more positive fandom, and like be a little self-aware of these. These are my grandmother would call her like soaps and stuff. Those were her stories.
Yeah.
These are my stories, right? I'm not gonna take them any more seriously than my grandmother did watching her soap operas.
Yeah. While I'm reading or watching, I'm gonna get have
Yeah,
that
I'm in the
feeling of
world and
excitement,
everything, right.
But outside of that, it's not
Yeah.
gonna pay my bills.
No, it's a
not-
story. And like,
it's not gonna
especially
hold
in
me at night.
comics, being mad about something in comics is like being mad that it's Thursday. If you just wait a little bit, it'll be Friday.
Now, if you're having a conversation with somebody about like continuity and source material,
Sure.
just have that conversation.
that conversation.
You can have that argument,
And
but don't be an asshole.
No, exactly.
Like, come on.
So and not to get like religious here, but like I tend to come from like a more like Buddhist background, and like a lot of like Buddhism is basically just like how to not be an asshole.
Basically,
and then like
yeah.
and then like the energy you put out into the world, like if you put out bad vibes and bad shit out into the world, you're most likely gonna get like bad vibes and bad shit back.
You're not
it's
better
probably-
than anybody else
No,
out there.
right? It's the same way with fandom. Like, learn. It's okay to like some things.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And it's okay that someone else likes something that you don't. And like, world keeps spinning.
It's like that. What is it? Shh. Let people enjoy things.
Right. Thank you. Okay. I think we have beaten that horse.
Yeah,
enough.
I feel a little relieved that we've had this conversation.
I know we're gonna have a part 2 or something at some point too.
Because there's going to be
Whenever-
something else that comes up.
that people are gonna be mad.
And
about.
even if we don't seriously have that conversation, it's just going to come up in the conversation that I can't believe.
Yeah, if we don't have a full episode devoted to it.
Yeah, I can't believe people are still doing this.
Yep. All right. Well, if you've enjoyed this conversation, which I hope you have, be sure
really
to
hope you have.
follow us. Subscribe on wherever you're listening to this podcast. If you review us and it's a 5-star review, we will read that review on air, no matter what it says. I'm waiting for someone to get me in trouble with that, but no, that hasn't happened yet. You can always tell us what you think about Toxic Fandom if you tweet us at GRC Podcast. We're also on Instagram at Grassroots Comics, and for all things Grassroots Comics related, like our Facebook page, just facebook.com/Grassroots Comics.
Yeah.
That's all for today. I've been your host, Carter Hutchison.
And I've been your co-host, Huey V.
And we'll see you next week, kiddos.
This has been a Grassroots Comics production. Da da da. So what's your story?
Well, some kind of silly cartoon.
You got a problem with cartoons?